The most punctual known word reference in the English language was the Elementary, a rundown of 8,000 English words accumulated by Richard Mulcaster and distributed in 1582. Prior to at that point, Latin had been the main regarded language of learning. The primary sequential word reference, a table alphabetical, was composed by teacher Robert Caudry in 1604. Every year, many new words and expressions are added to the world's word references. Words like blogger, Bitcoin, and Twitter don't mean equivalent to they once did. Gushing had a totally extraordinary importance even 5 years back, and words like bay or turducken were incomprehensible. Indeed, meh considers an adequate word now. Nonetheless, when words aren't utilized that frequently any longer, they are dropped from the most up-to-date books to prepare for as of late made words and expressions. Here is a short rundown of a portion of the words and expressions that we will presumably lose sooner rather than later. 10. Mutt and Jeff. Mutt and Jeff was a funny cartoon that started in 1907. Made by Harry Conway Bud Fisher, who had begun as a games visual artist for the San Francisco Chronicle, the funny cartoon was based around the characters Augustus Mutt and Jim Jeffries. The expression, Mutt and Jeff, alludes to two individuals who are perfect inverses, normally one tall and one short or one overwhelming and one slender. Different models are Abbott and Costello, Yogi Bear and Boo Boo, and Laurel and Hardy. The term turned into a catchphrase for two companions or colleagues who couldn't be progressively not the same as each other. 9. Kilroy Was Here. During each skirmish of World War II and the Korean War, there was consistently a fighter who might be the first to appear, the first to wage war, the first to run quick into the foe lines. He got known as Kilroy, and a sketch of a face peering over a fence turned into the image of this super soldier. Many various legends exist about the starting point of Kilroy Was Here, however the most probable concerns James J. Kilroy, a shipyard monitor who was entrusted with checking the bolts on recently developed warships. He would sign "Kilroy Was Here" on some subtle piece of the boat to show that he had assessed that zone. Sooner or later, he likewise left a sketch like the one above. The fighters who were moved on those boats saw the animation and had no clue about where it originated from. Since Kilroy had been there first, they concluded that it was dependent upon them to pass the attracting around to the most impossible spots they could find. Kilroy Was Here is apparently composed at the base of the Arc de Triomphe, on the arm of the Statue of Liberty, in the soil on the Moon, and even in a toilet that had been set up for the gathering of Churchill, Stalin, and Truman at the Potsdam Conference in 1945. Stalin was the first of the gathering to utilize the toilet. In the wake of leaving it, he went to his associate and asked, "Who is Kilroy?" 8. Bedlam. Bedlam is utilized to imply a circumstance that is totally wild, disorderly, and potentially dangerous. It began from Bethlem Royal Hospital, one of London's most infamous crazy refuges, which got known as Madhouse. Bethlem Hospital had been opened in 1247 and was assembled legitimately over a sewer that as often as possible flooded. The clinic wasn't such a great amount of utilized for the treatment of the intellectually sick, yet more as an approach to fundraise aid for the Crusades. By 1330, the structure turned into a real emergency clinic instead of a holding zone, and by 1377, it was carefully used to house and treat the intellectually sick. Around the 1600s, control of Bedlam was changed from the congregation to the state. Throughout the years, a wide range of surprising and risky test strategies were utilized on patients. For instance, a patient may be lashed in a seat suspended from the roof and spun around until he vomited. Patients were beaten, starved, consumed, and given toxic substances as strategies for treatment. Many didn't endure, and mass graves were later found on the property. Bethlem Royal Hospital is as yet operational, and specialists and attendants currently do all that they can to help the individuals who need their consideration. 7. A New York Minute. A New York Minute is a moment. This expression was intended to infer an extremely quick way of life or things that occur instantly on the grounds that New York City is viewed as a quick-paced spot to live. TV host and big-name Johnny Carson once kidded that a New York minute was the measure of time it took between the traffic light turning green and the person behind you blaring his horn. The truism is accepted to have been utilized without precedent for Texas around 1967. It mirrored the measure of time it would take a New Yorker to accomplish something when contrasted with a Texan. What a New Yorker can do in a moment, a Texan pauses for a moment to finish. 6. Blood, sweat, And tears, blood, sweat, and tears alludes to somebody giving their everything for a specific reason, something that requires depleting exertion. It was accepted that the articulation was a variety of an expression utilized by Sir Winston Churchill in a discourse in 1940. He was cautioning the individuals of Great Britain of the difficulty that was coming in World War II. I don't have anything to offer, however, blood, drudge, tears, and sweat. Actually, however, the first run through the articulation appears in print is credited to a lesson composed by Christmas Evans, which was made an interpretation of from Welsh to English in 1837. Christ the High Priest of our calling, Bism Ison Yosemite Calvary Sicardiginda, Kendi Amegial Yikand. Italians and French have their own variants of the adage, as they are Christian countries too. In 1967, performer Al Cooper utilized the expression for the name of his new jazz musical crew. At any rate, 140 unique artists have been individuals from blood, sweat and tears, one after another or another. 5. Cassette. The cassette is a simple attractive copying group, initially known as the compact audio cassette. It was made in 1963 by Philips, a Dutch innovation organization. There were two unique structures: clear tapes for recording music and the expressed word or tapes that were pre-recorded. Bantler and Baslanjikta Yazisma Makin Larin Kulanilmasi Amaklanmistir. However, upgrades to the framework made them more famous than 8-track tapes or reel-to-reel recording machines. Tapes were additionally seen as valuable for information stockpiling in early microcomputers. The main tape player made to fit in a vehicle dashboard was structured in 1968. From 1970 to the mid-2000s, tapes got one of the two most basic arrangements, close by the vinyl record, LP, and afterward the minimized circle, CD. That the tape would get stuck in the machine if the player began to lose power. You would need to deliberately evacuate the tape and afterward utilize a pencil or a screwdriver to rewind the tape onto its spool. 4. Floppy disk. A floppy circle is an attractive stockpiling mode for a lot of PC information, practically identical to the Glimmer drive we use today. You compose a circle or read one with a floppy plate drive. They were the most regularly utilized information design from the late 1970s right into the 1990s. Work on the main floppy plate framework was begun by IBM in 1967 in San Jose, California. The plates came in a few sizes, with 5.25-inch being the most well-known. Different sizes were presented after some time with constrained achievement. They were well known for almost 40 years. Be that as it may, floppies began to lose their allure during the 1990s as fast PC organizing and the USB thumb drive turned out to be increasingly helpful. Presently, floppy circles are just utilized with more seasoned equipment and mechanical PC hardware. 3. Yard goods. Path back before you could stroll into any retail chain and purchase dresses as garments should have been made by hand. Yard merchandise is the term for fabric, plastic, and different materials purchased by the yard for use in apparel or home products. After material is lingered or woven, it is commonly moved onto a cardboard center. When all is said and done, texture can shift in width from 5 cm 2 in to 183 cm 72 in, with a normal of 2 yards of 137 cm wide 54 in cotton texture expected to sew a lady's size medium shirt. Various textures were utilized to make drapes, upholstery, waterproof decorative spreads, and even shower scrubbies. Previously, Halloween ensembles were made by hand, as well. Most significant retail locations the nation over had a yard products office highlighting different shot textures and ideas like catches, zippers, string, and examples. Art and texture stores, for example, Jo-Ann Fabrics, Fabric Barn, and Michaels jumped up the nation over. They stayed famous until the mid-2000s when it got less expensive to purchase dress than make your own. Yard products are still promptly accessible online from different providers. 2. Swell. Swell has taken on numerous implications throughout the years. In the 18th century, swell signified haughty or pushy. By the mid-19th century, it was ordinarily utilized as a modifier and had taken on the signifying recognized or stylish. Around the 1920s, swell was a descriptive word that implied something that was great. By the 1930s, the word was being utilized in an unexpected way. It implied anything from brilliant to that is fine. As an action word, it has consistently intended to grow or increment in size or power. As a thing, it can likewise allude to long, moving waves in the ocean. Nowadays, swell is once in a while utilized aside from as a snide remark or in an unexpected sense, as in, the washer is spilling. Goodness, swell. 1. Golly. The word golly has quite a history. It is one of a trio of interchangeable words, golly, gosh, and gee. Originally recorded around 1775, golly and gosh were euphemisms, substitute expressions for the word God, and gee was a euphemism for Jesus. These days, golly is meant to express mild surprise or wonder without swearing. It was a common expression from the 1940s to the late 1970s. Its popularity grew in 1964 when Jim Nabors as TV character Gomer Pyle frequently used the word in everyday speech on The Andy Griffith Show and its spin-off series, Gomer Pyle, USMC. These days, golly is rarely used as society has lessened the restrictions on swearing. We're at the end of this video. If you like the video, don't forget to comment, like the video and subscribe to the channel.